Why weren't medieval-era brothels overrun with babies and children? Contraceptives derived from readily available plants, non-PIV sex acts, infertility due to poor nutrition, infertility due to STIs, staggeringly high rates of infant mortality, high rate of pregnancy loss due to STIs poor nutrition. Medicines that caused abortion were very common, though sold as products to return period regularity. These were super common, with even male doctors having their favorite recipes. Such things were not considered abortion at the time, as they were taken pre-quickening, i.e., before the baby was moving, and it was not considered a baby until then, as many things could cause a woman's periods to be delayed, not just pregnancy. Infanticide was practiced, though considered a crime, though the penalty for it was less than if the woman had killed an adult human, and while the mother would be punished, it would be considered an atonement for the sin. This is until the Council of Florence decreed in 439 that the souls of children who died without having been baptized descend to hell. This turned infanticide from a penitential sin, something the mother could atone for, to the most heinous of all crimes, and the mothers could be executed for committing it. You mean brothel sprouts? Some, if not most, absolutely were. Just as some in third world countries are now, like Bangladesh. The kids basically sleep on the concrete in the hallways while the women service clients in tiny rented rooms. There's actually a documentary about these women and other prostitutes called Whore's Glory. Unwanted children were either abandoned. Religion Unplugged.com News 2,019,529 What the pro-life movement looked like in the 12th-13th century foundling homes, or killed through abandoning them in places where they were likely to die or outright murdered. It was a lot easier to cover up or lie about killing an unwanted baby in those times, as infant death was much more common, 25-50, with 30 being most likely anyway. As others have mentioned, it wasn't like there was no birth control in the past as well, so the number of unwanted births wasn't as explosive as you might imagine. Not a pleasant Google search, but intentional induced abortion procedures have been around for a long time. I watched a documentary about ancient Rome, and they said in the brothels men were often so drunk they'd have sex with the women's thighs and not even slip it in and wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Fun fact, when I shared this fact on Reddit last, someone got up in arms and defensive about the Johns from ancient Rome, because I expressed amusement at them not actually sticking it in. Back in the 90s, Trojan-made lambskin condoms. They have been around for hundreds of years. Also, vinegar douche right after sex help. Yes, birth control has been a thing pretty much ever since humans figured out that after copulation, pregnancy occurred. I don't know about medieval brothels, but in ancient Rome infanticide was extremely common. The babies died or killed. I'm not saying that brothels were the same, but there's at least one really old nunnery where when they knocked it down, they found the bones of dozens of newborns in crawl spaces. Medieval brothels weren't overrun with babies because women used basic birth control like herbs and withdrawal, and brothel owners often didn't allow pregnant workers to stay. If pregnancies did happen, some women sought abortions, abandoned babies, or gave them to charity-run orphanages. High infant mortality also played a role. Before reliable forms of birth control and daycare, every day was bring your kid to work day. I suspect they had reed baskets and lakes rivers. They had some types of contraceptives, but they barely worked, and they usually had someone on staff that knew enough about herbalism to know what plants cause miscarriage. I know people don't like to think about this, but infanticide is likely the most common way. We've found mass graves of very young infants, likely associated with brothels. Another interesting fact, but in some parts of Germany a mother had the right to expose a baby. Probably because the majority of the babies and mothers died. There was a reason why people in the past tended to have 10 children, because maybe 2 of them reached adulthood. Modern medicine is amazing. We also have much better understanding of hygiene and access to calorie-dense food. Women's cycles were not the same as modern women's. Puberty started later. Menopause started earlier. Poor nutrition meant that a lot of women weren't getting regular periods, and if they recently had a baby they would be breastfeeding, which also affects it. How do we know they weren't?